The Hurunui district of North Canterbury can be a very dry region. It's mainly a sheep and beef farming area, but also contains cropping operations and dairy stock wintering. In 2002, a trust was formed to develop an irrigation scheme. Over $11 million has been invested in the Hurunui water project so far, including over $9 million from farmer shareholders. When we spoke to those involved, the Environment Court was considering a final ruling after nearly 2 years of delays, following an initial granting of resource consents to go ahead with the scheme.
Through the 1990s there was dry periods up here, and some farmers got together and decided irrigation would be a good idea. So they set up a trust initially, and then that transferred to the Hurunui water project in 2008 with the objective of getting water onto the dry country down on the flat below us. The initial scheme was intended to dam the south branch of the Hurunui River and put a weir on Lake Sumner, but through the consultative process that was taken out for environmental reasons, and the scheme shifted to the Waitaui River. The scheme relies on run-of-the-river water out of the Hurunui and stored water out of the Waitaui. So about 80% of the time over the long haul, water would come out of the Hurunui River, and about 20 or 30% of the time it would come out of the storage in the Waitaui. Currently, the consents that were granted back in August 2013 are under appeal and are in the Environment Court. The appellants and the regulator, ECAN, have all agreed on some solutions, but it's bound up in the Environment Court at the moment. The Ministry for Primary Industries has been very helpful. We have got Irrigation Acceleration Fund one-to-one funding. It means we've got to find $1 for every dollar that IAF put in. At the moment, the directors have halted the scheme development because we can't necessarily find the funding. Clearly, the Environment Court and legal processes have sopped up a lot of funds, so we are seeking further funds to go forward now. We're at the mouth of the Waitaui, where the river exits onto the plain, and just down here would be where the gorge dam is built to raise the water up high enough to get it out onto the plains. The consents contain the possibility of putting in 4 dams on the Waitaui River in the long term. In the short term, there would only be 1 dam, plus perhaps the Gorge Road Dam here to get the water out onto the plain. We'd love to get going, and I'd like to get going and start building something. The work has all been done here to sort out the compromises between the environmental aspects and the farming aspects. There's been a lot of good work done here over a long time. It'd be good to go and get that into effect now. Irrigation schemes are really long-term infrastructure. So in the overall scheme of things, getting water on the land really is a separate issue to what the land's used for. It'll change over the next 200 years. The irrigation scheme's likely to be here for that long. So the Waitaui's coming down this side?
No, the Waipara comes up. The Waipara comes down this side.
Oh, the Waipara's here, yeah.
Everything you can see.
I started farming here in 1968, and we had 3 or 4 dry years in a row, and it's just terrible. This year now, this is the worst we've had it since then, but we've had a lot of dry years. It just knocks the stuffing out of you as far as being a farmer goes. All your money goes on feed and your production goes down. You can't do the things you want to do. So we've got 200 farmer shareholders to put money in, and it was quite a lot of money. This scheme would have taken more money off farmers than any other scheme I know in the initial stages. The farmers here were so desperate for water, they were prepared to put their money up front. And we thought the amount of money we raised would get the scheme pretty well designed anyway, and consented. But we've been held up with changes in legislation and statutory processes, and it's just so frustrating. On our farm, I expect that we would irrigate at maximum 20% of the farm, but possibly less, and I think the economics of it would be quite good, better than dairying. I think it would be because you could guarantee feed for the winter, you could guarantee to fatten your lambs or your cattle or whatever you wanted to fatten. You'd have options where in a year like this, where our sheep are light condition, low lambing percentage, and we're going low feed covers. We're going to have to get the lambs off as quick as we possibly can, probably sell stores so everything's gone by Christmas, just to get the base stock through the summer. So that's, and with water we wouldn't have all those problems.
We are a large land-based shareholder of Hurunui Water Project, and I'm also the chairman of the Farmer Liaison Committee, which is a group that represents farmer views towards the board. The issue of land intensity and nutrient loading is one that's been constantly worked through the whole time, and I think if you go back to the bones of why this project was set up, it was set up to give farmers land use options inside their initial business, but also for future land use change. Now that doesn't necessarily mean dairy, because as you've seen the dairy downturn, what it does mean is that it just means that in the future the drought per se would be protected or sort of taken out of your business. I mean, that was the real reason behind Hurunui Water Project in the first case. So to say all land is going to dairy is a bit of a nonsense, really. All the parties involved, all the shareholders, which are Ngāi Tahu, the landowners, the Muri Irrigation Company and the Hurunui Water Project itself, including ECAN, have all signed a document to say that we want to move the process forward, and yet we're still in hold mode with the Environment Court. We'd like to see more government involvement, particularly around setting better rules for how we can progress these schemes, because the reality is we can't get everything right in the first instance. You know, agriculture's been a great thing in New Zealand it's the New Zealand mentality, isn't it? It's the number 8 wide, it's adapting to change and it's adapting to, new farming systems. And I think, once we've got irrigation, we will do things better and technology will catch up. So we've got to give, I guess, farmers and the researchers and the scientists time to develop the technology that we need to protect the environment, because it's not available at the moment. And at the end of the day, we just want this thing to get moving. I mean, we've been through a pretty mean drought, in fact, the worst one I've ever farmed through. The whole idea of this was to avoid these droughts, and so we're very hopeful that we can get it over the line so we don't have to go through this drought again.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.